Hello and welcome to the show. This is Addis Dialogue from Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. Toward the end of 19th century, Ethiopianism becomes an embryonic center for African consciousness and an internationalist movement for the black consciousness towards their rights and independence. What sort of legacies and emotional impression can it put on the minds of the black people, especially the global south? In today's program, we examine the sociological aspects of Adwa, its reality, its visibility and resilience. According to Marcus Garvey, Adwa connected Africans with their ancient glory as well as their future hope. My guest today is Dr. Brahanu Lenjiso, senior sociologist. Your host, Gzacho Derib, do stay with us. Dr. Brahanu Lenjiso, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Gzacho.
Let's start our discussion regarding Adwa in this sociological lens. What's Adwa for you?
Adwa actually is a very monumental incident in the world history, and it is one of the most discussed topics, globally speaking. But as I said earlier, most of the discussions look at that historical incident, the military milestone Ethiopia achieved, and what it means for the rest of the Africans, and so on and so forth. The sociological perspective, I think, is a missing perspective. At least we didn't pay the attention it deserves. And today, as you said, we will try to delve into a more sociological perspective of Adwa and how it actually defined identity, how it defined the social structure and the political process in general. So looking at it from that perspective, Adwa is actually one of the most stunning historical incidents that left it is legacy on us as Ethiopians, on Africans, the black people in general, the global south, and so forth. So it has a very wide-reaching and transcending impact. To show this with examples, I will take 3-4 very related topics depending on the time we have, but we will do that under similar framing that I want to frame it as a defining moment. Adwa is actually a defining moment for me. There is a military battlefield where we achieved remarkable victory. That's a very good step, but what makes Adwa actually shining and stunning compared to all similar resistance movements before it is impact on us as Ethiopians, Africans, and the world. By the way, if we look at it as a resistance movement or a battlefield victory, we can also raise many others that happened before that. Yeah. Even in Ethiopia, for example, Ethiopians successfully defended their territory. Yeah. They fought against the Ottoman Empire. They fought against Italians multiple times before that. They fought against the Egyptians. We fought against the Sudanese, Mahdist Sudanese, even with British, many others. And not only Ethiopians, many other African group did. Yeah. Yes, the Zulus, for example.
Zimbabwe, Angola.
Yeah. In 1879, the Zulus actually resisted successfully the British. The Maasai did. Yeah. The Ashantis in Ghana did. So we have similar resistance movements that looks like Adwa, but Adwa stand out. Yeah. Why Adwa stand out? Is that the military milestone that makes it stand out, or there is something else? For me, if we take the sociological perspective, as I said earlier, we can I think, relatively in a better way find why Adwa is that different, why it stands out. That is why I said it is much better for me to define Adwa as a defining moment itself. A defining moment of what? So now we can take 3-4 topics that we can discuss or converse on to show that it is really a defining moment. The first one is Adwa is a defining moment of identity. It is a defining moment of identity for us as Ethiopians because it is basically where we get our collective national identity, for me. It is a defining moment for Africans as well because it actually inspired them to continue to resist and to fight for their independence. Adwa is also a defining moment for our collective national identity and the birthplace for true Ethiopian nationalism for me. So if we look at these three, we can also look at, for example, other sociological factors, for example, the gender role itself and the legacy it left. But let us dwell on the first three. Defining moment of identity. What do I mean by that? Look, colonialism has started with identity definition. What is that identity definition? There is something called the Eurocentric perspective or the ethnocentric perspective in sociology. Ethnocentric perspective is a perspective or the cultural outlook where you believe, or actually later they act on that belief, that you say, my culture, my being is better than the others. So all the others who look like me are better, and those who are different from me are bad, or they should be changed. And the responsibility is on you to change them. So colonialism is actually justified like that. Okay, we the Europeans are the civilized, the advanced, we have the technology, we have the enlightened, we have the know-how, we are in a better position, and these Africans, for example, they are inferior. They are not like us. So we have to go and change them to us. They cannot even resist that because they are inferior, they are incapable, they don't have the capacity to defend themselves. That is the definition. So the world was the Europeans against the others, the better Europeans and the inferior others. So their military expedition actually was driven by that. In 1884, when Scramble for Africa started, they massively started on these premises. So they managed to defeat many African countries, as you know. Even the resisting group were defeated. Ethiopia said no. It is not only saying no and achieving that military milestone that matters for me. It is actually changing that definition, identity definition. Identity, yes, the Europeans said we are better, they are inferior. We can always defeat them. The Ethiopians changed the global mind about it. They said, when Ethiopians defeat the Italian colonial army successfully, then everybody has to stand and question that identity definition. Then the Africans who almost surrendered that definition of the Europeans was right, also said, oh, that is not correct. So we have to continue to resist this colonialism. So Adwa actually defined identity at global level. I will come to Ethiopian identity definition a bit later. So at first, it defined or at least redefined the global identity definition and inspired Africans to act based on that redefinition for their freedom. So this is a huge moment. Look, it is not limited to us Ethiopians or the colonized African countries or even to the global south. It appealed to the entire world. It also changed the Europeans who hold that perspective to re-question their definition.
As they scored a resounding victory over Italian aggression and over aggressors, where is Adwa today in the minds of Africans and diasporas as well?
Adwa actually at least ignited or strengthened the Pan-African movement, because, as I said, it redefined identity, the way we look at each other. So the Eurocentric thinking was broken by Adwa, and the Africans were inspired to continue the resistance movement. So it is the symbol of resistance against colonialism. By that, we can also take that to extend it to Pan-Africanist movement. So it really became a very strong milestone of Pan-Africanism. It initiated Africans to continue the movement, and ultimately Africans achieved their independence. After, 15, 16 years, Africa, the continent, and many other countries who were under colony become independent. So there was a saying that that consciousness, actually, that very rational consciousness of Africans helped them to achieve independence from colonialism. But overcoming small linguistic divisions between African nations tapped Africa into poverty and inequality. So Adwa redefined identity, it redefined the resistance movement, inspired Africans, strengthened Pan-Africanism, and helped the African nation to achieve their independence. Then I think we also failed to continue to have that conversation and defining, or at least framing that Pan-Africanism that was inspired by Adwa itself to achieve more, necessary milestones in African development. Although it has a transcending impact at global level, and inspired Africans to achieve what they achieved, this happened in Ethiopia. This is basically an Ethiopian victory. And remember what Ethiopia was in at that time. Yeah, the modern Ethiopian state formation wasn't even complete. The expansionist war was still going on. The local chiefs were fighting against each other, but they happened to come to fight the external invaders together. That is a very, very fascinating story. Look, through that, we actually managed to get our collective identity. Although we can have our small disagreements, but when there is a common enemy coming to us, we can march together. They managed to mobilize that huge farmers soldier to fight Italians. And that is the birthplace of modern collective Ethiopian identity. And that is also the birthplace of Ethiopian nationalism, true Ethiopian nationalism. So as Ethiopians, we get our true pride and true national pride and identity from Adwa. That is why it also happened to be a very consistent national holiday
that we celebrate
under different regimes, like under Menelik, under Emperor Haile Selassie, under the Derg, under EPDRF, under the current government. It is consistently a very pride moment for us And that tells you that it is the true birthplace of Ethiopian collective national identity or Ethiopian nationalism.
You are a senior sociologist and you are also familiar with many researchers in this aspect that Adwa is the center of identity, the center of Pan-Africanism, the center of resistance movement, as you have said. Where is the meaning and the memories of this event in today's African consciousness?
One of the reasons why I said taking the sociological perspective, at least as an additional perspective to the most dominantly used historical perspective, is to help us to get its relevance for us today and for the next generation. If Adwa is a battle, a victory, a military victory that our forefathers achieved 100 years ago, relating it to yourself will decline through time. But if it is a defining moment of who you are, if we understand the impact of this event on your identity, then it resonates with you. But then for me, the Adwa is resonating with current generation and probably with the next generation more than the past. Look, for example, on the 38th summit, African Union Summit last week, I heard the leaders were demanding reparation for slavery and the colonialism.
Yeah, for Africans and African descent.
Yes. So it is like this time. This time is the time when we need to define that victory so that we get inspired with it, and we also demand the damage we suffered from. For us to ask all those and to define all those, our understanding is very important. So understanding Adwa as something that inspires us, as something that is the base of our identity, that gives us that meaning of who we are today, will make it even a more resounding and resonating historical moment. Again, it is a historical moment that defined our identity yesterday and that define our identity today. So it is as current as it was. It will live with us forever.
Adwa was considered as a symbol of freedom and a symbol of redemption, according to scholars, sociologically speaking. We can also remember what Prime Minister of Barbados made a speech at the 38th AU Summit a weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago. It is a resounding speech and motivational as well regarding reparation for Africans and African descent, as she also clearly put that she is the daughter of Africa because of Adwa. But why today the issue of Adwa, as we've said in the course of our discussion, a bit declining?
Adwa is considered as a military victory. It is a military victory, no question about it. But what makes it stunning and resonating with today's generation, and also that makes it a transcending victory, is the fact that it has impacted the definition, the existing definition. It actually resisted that definition, said that is not true. And it is not only that we achieved that victory by saying that is not true, we managed to change it. Yeah. Then there comes another cultural outlook actually after that. That ethnocentric cultural outlook was broken by Adwa, and then they come up with something called cultural relativism. Yeah. Culture everywhere is the same because culture serves its people in the same way. So there is no cultural hierarchy. The Europeans actually put an hierarchy first in definition. Yeah. we are first and the rest is bad, we have to change them to us. But later they said, oh, cultural relativism, you are okay the way you are. We don't want to interfere. Keep your culture, we keep ours. That is called cultural relativism. So the definition has effectively changed even in science. But when we discuss about how it redefined the resistance movement, actually, I think on that angle, other Africans, the global South, especially blacks in the diaspora, get a true meaning out of Adwa more than we do. You know why? Because for us, they came, we fought, we defeated.
Yeah.
We are good. Yes, we are done there. What we kept our status quo. So we don't have another alternative, you know. We don't have that counterfactual that say what would have happened if they defeated us. We don't have that.
Yeah.
But the rest, they have that. They know what it means to be under colony. So when they generate their motivation from Adwa and they sparked or they inspired to continue to resist colonialism and they get their independence, that is even different. That is why sometimes, you know, when some black leaders come and make a speech about Adwa, it is not only the Prime Minister of Barbados. I also remember Thabo Mbeki making a speech about Adwa some years ago. Yeah. It is so inspiring. It is so, you know, shocking the way they understand what it means. So, because they have a better angle to look at it, especially from the resistance perspective. But we need to have conversation on Adwa. And we also need to speak to the world how we understand Adwa. For example, I am very happy to have this conversation with you today because I believe this is one perspective for us. Like the Ethiopians, we look at Adwa actually as a defining moment of identity at global level. It is a defining moment of resistance against colonialism. It is the umbilical cord of Pan-Africanism. And it is the true cornerstone of our collective national identity and Ethiopian nationalism. So that means it is everything for us. It is who we are. It is who we were yesterday, it is who we are today, and it is who will be tomorrow.
What do we learn from Adwa's victory?
It all depends on how you look at it, but one thing that we can learn from Adwa, for me, is the power of unity. I think that is the most consistent one for me. And through all my readings and experience, that stand out. Why Ethiopians achieved that victory? It is because they managed to unite against their invaders. And if you look at that Eurocentric definition, actually, they were right. Actually, they have a base to define themselves like that, and to also define us like that, because they are enlightened, they are more educated, they have modern weapons, you know, they have waged wars in different places, and they achieved victories. And they said, okay, if we go to Ethiopia, we can easily defeat them. They come with their modern weapon and based on their estimation. But Ethiopians managed to unite beyond their imagination. Yeah. So unity is I think the big thing we learn from Adwa, and it's also what we need today. We have a lot of issues today. We have bigger issues, maybe bigger than those invaders today in our country. Small, you know, including our work culture and not using our resources properly, not treating each other well, not expanding infrastructure, education, health service. All these are very important things.
Can we extend it to entire Africans as well?
Exactly.
What Africans can learn from this?
Exactly. I think it is the same. I don't think we see a much difference today. No. As I said earlier, their consciousness at that time, especially their racial consciousness and the inspiration they generated from Adwa, helped them to achieve independence from the colonial power. But we, Africans, collectively failed to extend that achievement to internal issues. For example, towards achieving economic prosperity, towards ensuring democracy. For example, almost all Africans hate colonizers because they are unfair. Yeah. They are undemocratic. They consider them as second citizens. They put hierarchy between citizens. Yeah. But after they achieve their independence and they become independent nations, many African leaders couldn't manage to give that democracy.
To Africans?
Yes. So most African leaders happen to be the new colonizers. They used the same tactics they learned from colonizers. So that is what we need to change. And to change that, the people should unite. The people should unite. Unity can change anything in Africa. And particularly for Ethiopians, we have still issues that the Ethiopian, as I said earlier, the Ethiopian state formation wasn't even complete in 1896. It was completed in 1898, 2 years after Adwa. So Ethiopia gets its current territory in 1898, 2 years after Adwa. So after completing that basic state formation process, the next step would have been for Ethiopians to continue to build a unified nation where the Ethiopian people come together to define their common identity, define common goal, common vision, common dream, common symbols. Today, after 113 years, we couldn't manage to complete that homework. The national dialogue we are trying to initiate today is to complete that after 113 years. Again, to complete that for us, we need unity. Because that unity helped us to defeat the colonizers and to complete the state apparatus definition, and for us to complete this nation building process. We need unity. We need to listen to each other. We need to, be empathetic about each other. There are a lot of injustices that happened in this country that happened elsewhere as well. So we need to discuss that and close that chapter and chart a common vision, a common dream for us to move forward together. If we can manage to do that, then Adwa will still resonate with us, will help us to achieve more milestones in our country.
We are celebrating the beacon of hope for Africans and for the black people in general, or for those who are under colonization. After 130 years, or after 13 decades, what is the Adwa of today for Ethiopians in particular and for Africans or for blacks in general?
Our Adwa today, or our resistance toward the colonial force at that time, should be against poverty today, should be against ignorance today, should be against inequality today. We have to ensure prosperity in Africa. Africa has a resource that others are using. Ethiopia has a huge resource. Ethiopia has huge land, huge weather resource, huge human resource. So we have to combine all this to ensure our prosperity. If we can't ensure prosperity today, so we are compromising the independence and sovereignty that we achieved by paying huge price, by giving life, we are giving it to, bread. So if we can't ensure our prosperity, if we can't be independent, if we cannot feed ourselves, if we can't be self-sufficient in food and related matters, our independence will remain always partial. So for us to make our sovereignty true and our independence complete, we have to fight poverty, we have to fight ignorance, and we have to fight inequality in our countries and in our continent.
Thank you very much. Independence by blood also needs independence of bread. Dr. Birhanu Lenjiso, senior sociologist, thank you very much for your critical analysis and insight as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, by this we come to the end of our today's show. Thank you for being with us. Until we meet with another edition, you can follow us on different social media platforms of Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. Goodbye for now.